Good afternoon. Welcome to Oakland Cemetery. Like the gentleman said, my name is George L. Cruickshank. I was born in 1834 here in Fort Dodge, and my childhood was a normal one. I was playing sports and probably getting myself into a little more trouble than I should have. But Fort Dodge was a great place to grow up and learn and grow. Throughout my childhood, I became very interested and fond of the mercantile industry. And so at the age of 22, I opened my own mercantile store here in Fort Dodge, and I owned and operated that store until 1861. And in 1861, I felt the calling to represent my country and preserve the integrity of the great nation that we live in. And I enlisted in Company A of the 11th Pennsylvania Cavalry Regiment. I enlisted just after my 27th birthday, so I was a little old for a soldier. There were 14, 15, 16-year-olds in my company, and there was actually a rumor of a 12-year-old out there fighting for us somewhere. The reason I was not in an Iowa regiment is because there wasn't one. There wasn't enough interest from the state of Iowa to have its own regiment, so I was part of the Pennsylvania regiment. As a part of that company and that regiment, we faced many hardships. The first coming at Fortress Monroe, Virginia, when it was our first taste of combat at the time, and we came in, were drilled by the South, and we left with just over half of our company still intact. Before that, we were at camp, just like every regiment, training for what lied ahead, and the government did not have enough funds to support the war because of the casualties and the people who wanted to participate, and so we suffered from a severe clothing shortage. And actually, our regiment was relieved of our duty very briefly because of that shortage. So needless to say, none of us were too upset about that problem. After camp and after the Fortress Monroe in May of 1862, we had the privilege of having the Commander-in-Chief, President Lincoln, come review our regiment. And after that review, Company A was detached and put under the direct order of General Mansfield. And our work detail included making maps of the routes between Suffolk and Blackwater. And it was actually kind of interesting the way we did it. We put a compass on the pommel of a horse's saddle and rode the horse and made a memoranda of the direction that the horse walked. And the time it took the horse to walk determined the distance. We would walk the route, come back, and the map would be made. That was not our only job with General Mansfield. We were also constantly on surveying and outpost duty. In June of 1863, we were sent down the Pamunkey River by President Lincoln on a steamer over to Hanover Courthouse and onwards for 2 expeditions. The first being capturing a wagon train in Virginia, and then secondly, we captured an earthwork at the South Anna Bridge. And the purpose of those two expeditions was to cut off railroad communication up north to Richmond and to prevent the South from being able to communicate. And actually, during that time, we had the privilege to capture Brigadier General Rooney Lee, General Robert E. Lee's son. After that, in February of 1864, we were placed under General Wister's command, and we were part of the famous surprise on Richmond. But unfortunately, we were not able to get past Bottom Bridge at the Chickahominy River. After that, we returned to Williamsburg, where we were stationed, and we were constantly moving for the rest of the war. Our purpose was to destroy bridges, roads, and railroads. And we moved so often that it wasn't uncommon for us to travel over 300 miles in 6 days. So let's just say that we weren't too happy with our officers at that time. I ended my career after 3 years of service, and I returned back to Iowa. And during those 3 years, I wrote over 350 pages of letters to Esther Flowers, my love. And Esther was the most beautiful woman that many of you would probably ever see. She moved to Fort Dodge from Vermont at the age of 16, but first by train and then by covered wagon. And her father broke into the raw prairie and created a farm outside of Fort Dodge. And the letters that I wrote to her are actually stored in the Historical Society of Iowa, and I actually have one from 1864 that I wrote to her. Yesterday, together with 10 men, I went as an escort for Colonel Cram, Inspector General of Wool Department. Just as we started, General Max Weber and General Robinson rode up and across the pasture as part of the way. We rode out to the barracks which were built by the rebels, and examining them the whole length, and then to a number of more rebel camps. We also rode to Spennow Point, where rebels had a battery to defend the obstruction in the Channel River below Norfolk. It is a very strong work, 11 guns. It was built of timber and covered with earth. A short distance was a battery of guns. They had furnaces for heating. They had spiked their guns and blown up the magazines. We were in the saddle all day, so you will see that we were not idle. I have written my letter at random, but I know you will be interested to learn what we are doing. If you are not well, Esther, please do not exert yourself to write. I felt sorry that you had undertaken to write before when I felt you were not equal to the task. But I hope you are now fully recovered. Give my respects to your father, mother, and sister. With my very best love, I'm yours, George. I married Esther after I returned home to Iowa, and we spent the first few years of our marriage in Fort Dodge before moving to Dakota City, where I got back into the mercantile business and opened the first store after the Civil War in Dakota City. Later in life, I started farming at Esther's family's farm, and I served the Humboldt County extensively. First as a township clerk, then I was a secretary of the Humboldt School Board. I was the postmaster at Dakota City and Addison, and I was the chairman of the Humboldt Creamery Company. My wife and I were blessed with many children, 3 of which died too soon. William died in infancy, Gregory Jr. died at the age of 17, and Robert at age 20. 4 children ended up surviving me, and I died in 1914 at the age of 80. After services at my home, I was brought to my true home in Fort Dodge and Oakland Cemetery. National Guard fired 3 volleys, and I was sent off to the favorite tune that I heard throughout my years in the Civil War, the sound of a bugler playing taps. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.